Hey, so this is the first of what will probably be a number of conversations about relocation, people from the African diaspora, and where we are in this time and place right now. And Carly, this is a conversation that you and I have been having repeatedly over the past few months, but this is the first time that we're live talking about it. Um, we've stumbled upon the name the Exodus Project, the Exodus Collective, even. Tell me more about where that name came from, because I love it and I think it speaks a lot to what this is all about.
Yeah, I'll definitely give thanks. And also, I just want to give some recognition to you for being a part of this creation of the Exodus Collective, for sure. How it came about, it was it was more of a it was more of a sense that was coming to me through these recent collective and global changes on personal levels, on systematic racist levels that have really come to the surface in so many ways. I'm currently in the United States. I'm from the United States. I've lived in Grenada for 5 years, but being back here in this moment in time, um, it definitely has activated certain things within me that are connected to what my people are really feeling and thinking of for the next chapter of their lives. How Exodus came to my mind, it was really it was more of a message that just came in over and over that this would be the next step that some Black people would really be wanting to um, act on within this within this time, getting free, liberating themselves from environments that are abusive, that threaten their own livelihood, and stepping into opportunities and possibilities of environments where they can thrive more than just survive, and perhaps even start over. And I came to that word of who can I align with, um, that perhaps has already created this type of organization, this type of group. And you were the first person that came to my mind. I just sent you a text like, do you know of any uh, organizations that have this type of focus point for Black people, not just within America, but beyond? And I didn't know that this was something that was also on your radar within yourself for I don't know how long, but from there, like we just came together and here we are.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
crazy how that happens because you and I have known each other for a good few number of years and we've never had that conversation before this time. So, yeah. And I think what was interesting is that, like, there's definitely lots out there for people who want to move to West African countries. There's like some amazing people on YouTube who walk you through every single step from how to get your visa to how to find a school. But for the Caribbean, there doesn't really seem to be as much. So I think it's quite exciting to just begin to share the stories of people who've done that already and begin to create conversations amongst people who are also having similar ideas. And I think what's super interesting is that, I mean, you've lived in Grenada for longer than I have, but you come from the US experience. I come to it as someone who lives in London, but as of Grenadian parentage. But it's just, yeah, the way in which each of us in each sets of people are still having these parallel experiences at this time and feeling, many of us feeling this need to be somewhere safer, more nurturing, more aligned with who and how we want to be as people. Like, it's exciting to me to kind of create or hold that space. I don't think it's creating space because it's the conversations are happening anyway. But yeah.
Yeah.
But one of the reasons that I'm talking too much, but you'll have to forgive me. One of the reasons that I really wanted to reach out to you is that one, I thought it would be interesting to hear your experience as an African American woman moving to or ending up in Grenada, let's put it that way. And two, given what you do day in, day out, and just your awareness of the importance of um, being balanced in yourself and understanding yourself and using that understanding as the springboard from which to move. Like, to me, that seemed like a really key segment to anyone who's thinking about making this journey. As someone who's moved to Grenada before, like, moving there when your head isn't right, you're kind of going to run into some problems potentially. But yeah, I would love to get your take on how you feel the mind, body, spirit element, even if that's the right word, but how that element is useful as a framework for considering relocating and moving.
Mhm. Mhm. I feel as though really getting clear on that piece is very much foundational, and yet that was not my experience. And it wasn't until um, I've, I mean, I had to experience what I was destined to in order to really like come to that truth that, okay, getting clear within yourself, but also externally, like how do I want my life to be, but also like how do I want to feel in my life, in this new life. um, that's something that had to come about very organically and not in the way that I would have envisioned it or like wanted to plan it out. But I mean, that's, this is life, right? Like we could plan, but then life will happen, life will run its course. But that's also why I had really wanted to um, be able to hold space with others, to have these conversations on bringing focus within during the process of relocating. And once you are in that, so, that whole mentality of, oh, well, when I move to this place, then everything will, when I get that job, then everything will. When I get that relationship, then everything will. Like that's been my story. And I know a lot of other people might really identify with this. Like there's an aspect of human nature that kind of feels like, like we're having to strive, or we want to strive for more for our lives. Um, so definitely, like with the Exodus Collective, I feel it's a beautiful opportunity to focus on the internal and external realities and possibilities of moving your life, but also like moving your way of being in your life in that process. And for me, I'm coming from the perspective of mind, body, and spirit. Um, and yeah, it's something that I haven't really seen too much when I look at other platforms for relocating. It's much more on the external, which makes sense. I mean, they're both tied together in many ways. But my experience has been that it was very foundational for me to build that clarity within myself for how do I want to be in my life, in a new environment, different culture, and getting clear within myself in that.
Yeah, and that way of changing your way of being is yeah, that's so huge. Um, so I'm interested to find out knowing what you know now, do you think you could have shifted your understanding of how to be before you moved, or does it always have to be a process?
Mhm. Yeah, I love that question. Um, Knowing what I know now, I would have loved to have known it before. I still would have, that's interesting. I still would have probably made like choices
Uh-huh.
to go back to Grenada or to leave the United States. I feel like that's very much a part of my soul call ever since uh, I think I was 12 years old when I was standing on the shores of Jamaica. I just knew that I had been there before, even though that was my first time there as a child, and I knew that I had to go back, or at least an environment that was very much reflective of that. So
Mhm.
like that was destined. But I might have done other things a little bit differently. One thing I would have maybe taken more time uh, with was really unpacking a pattern within myself of what is it called? Destination addiction, that type of thing. Like,
Okay.
when I and then when I get when I have that type of and yet, I mean, I guess the paradox is that I would not have really become aware of that until I really experienced those things.
Mm.
And like, okay, so I was able to create my own healing arts practice. I thought that that was going to be one of the things that, just brought me all the peace. Yeah, I mean, I was proud of myself. I was, I was feeling all of those things, and yet it was a real challenge to like balance that with recreating my life back in Grenada.
Yeah.
I got married. Well, this was actually before I created my healing. I thought that would be something. And I was really like shown aspects of myself like, Carly, you might not be really prepared for marriage, you know? So it's like there was so many like themes that I was like reaching for that I thought would be the all. So I guess to answer your question, that would be one aspect, but yet I would not have known until I really like experienced those things and also in the environment that I was reaching for.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. Um, and so for me, I moved to Grenada in 2015 when I was 4 months pregnant. And I'm trying to think back to what I thought moving to Grenada would achieve. And it's kind of difficult to think about that after the fact. But for me, a large part of moving was that I wanted to show my children something different. I had a 4-year-old at the time as well. And I wanted him to be immersed in a Black country, to just step away from some of the nonsense that he was having to see day in, day out in the UK. Um, and for me, I just feel more alive and enriched and less anxious and just a different person. I feel in flow in Grenada in a way that I don't here. Um, and I think that was a huge part of my motivation for moving. Um, the reality of being there is, as always, more complex than it is. But
Mhm.
I'm curious to find out, what did you think moving to the Caribbean would mean for you? And I know the circumstances in which you moved are also, they're layered. It wasn't like just your choice. So could you speak a little bit about what took you to the Caribbean and what you thought moving to the Caribbean would mean for you, if
Mhm.
anything?
Yeah, wow. Well, what had led me over to Grenada was initially through my then husband. He was studying medicine at the medical school in Grenada, St. George's University. And through that experience, um, I learned so much about myself, about my relationship, about my family, uh, but definitely fundamentally myself. So initially, I was led to Grenada through his dream, and this is what I always tell people. They just ask me about how did you end up in Grenada? Like, I really believe that it was both of our souls calling to be in Grenada, and yet it wasn't necessarily for the relationship to
Mm.
last eternally. Um, and it's definitely shown itself. And it was about a year in to he and I living in Grenada. Um, we had gotten married, and my mother had passed away about 8 months later. That was a huge awakening, shift in my life, within myself, and everything changed. Um, it was as if the mirror was constantly up of Carly, like, is this the truth? Like, are you living in your truth? Um, and who do you want to be from knowing this now? And through that experience, everything did change, within my relationship, within my marriage, within my relationship with myself. It was a deep diving, for a couple years for sure. I mean, it always is a deep diving for me, but
Mm.
but it's I would say it's much more balanced now, or much more integrated. But I had to go through those experiences of divorce, of really getting clear on, well, what is this calling? What is this calling that is leading me back to Grenada? Because even when I went back to the United States, um, I just knew that I would end up back in Grenada. And for me, it was, even if the word didn't come in clear, but more of the essence of it, for me, it represented where I felt most, as you said, in flow, where I felt most alive.
Mm.
I came alive in the environment, in witnessing people, Black people who looked like me, and we were the majority. I didn't have that experience coming up in the United States. I'm from Philadelphia, which is a very diverse, in a sense, city, but also, I mean, any major city within the United States, there is forms of micro segregation.
Mm.
It's just it's just a fact within this country. So to go from that experience to living in a majority Black country, it opened up a sense of security, safety, and through that safety, I felt more alive to to just
Right.
be in my body and to be from my soul. I felt very curious, of course, being new, to the country and getting to know people. Like, I really wanted to get closer to the community, to communities that would, where I could learn more and and just enjoy and
Yeah.
create friendships um, and then of course the natural elements of, I mean, of Grenada is amazing. Like, the waterfalls and the beaches and just being closer to that natural essence of life.
Yeah, no, totally. I'm like feeling so nostalgic and wishing I could get on a flight right now, but I can't.
I'm telling you, that's exactly what I was just thinking. I was
It's
like,
okay.
God, I want
Good. It's like push it to the side, push it to the side. So like I'm
sometime.
curious to find out, like a lot of like there's getting right in your head, there's getting right financially, there's getting right work wise, but a big part that I found, and other people I know who've made the move have also found, is that a lot of people are going to think you're crazy. a lot of people are going to think like, why would you be leaving a developed country? Like, yes, one that has massive issues, but why would you leave to like go to somewhere that suffers from hurricanes every now and again and is like not, you can't get Amazon Prime, like a lot of people just don't get it at all. So when I can imagine that when you were moving with your husband or your fiance, that was something that made sense because it was for his profession and it was for a set amount of time. But when you decided to go back, like when you didn't have to go for someone else and you were actually choosing to be based there, like what was the reaction of your friends and family like, and how did you navigate that?
Yeah. Yeah, that I was crazy.
Ah, okay.
Like, and it's all right. So I would say more of the majority consensus might have been, and I mean I knew that it was. Is she okay? Is she? I think also with me experiencing the loss of my mother a year
Mm-hmm.
prior, it was very easy from the outside in to attribute it to that being the only reason, and
Mm.
perhaps something's wrong with her, or it's because she lost her mother, and now her marriage is ended, and she's and I could also understand that from the outside looking in. But being in my life, I knew that that wasn't the truth. That wasn't the only truth. Um, but for sure, I would say um, it was very easy for people to perceive or to understand me moving when I was moving with my partner for his dream,
Mm-hmm.
because also on a I think what is considered more socially acceptable also as a woman, to be the helpmate, to to be that supporter. But to go from that to choosing, like me choosing like how I want my next chapter to look, and yes, it looks very radical from anything that at least many that I know in my circle at the time would choose. I don't think it was really understood, and I had to be okay with that. I really had to be okay with that, and I did it anyway.
Yeah.
It was, I think what it really given me the the sense of drive was knowing deep down that I was walking this not only for myself, but
Mm.
for the lineage of the women in my family who did not have that choice
Totally.
or did not make that choice.
Yeah.
And that's what really sustained me throughout the way and even to this day.
Yeah. No, that's so powerful. That the element of choice that we have, even if it's not in the most ideal of circumstances, it's definitely something that yeah, it's highly
Yeah,
relevant.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so you have spoken a lot about your process, and I'm curious to see what have you learned from your experience and also seeing the experiences of others who've returned to Grenada or other Caribbean islands, um, that you would share or think of as relevant to other people who are at that point where they're feeling this urge to move, but they're not sure, their family don't get it, and it all feels uncertain. But yeah, underneath it all, there's still this kind of pull to move to something different. What would you say to
Mhm,
people like that?
mm. Well, the first piece that I would encourage is to continue to tap in to your own intuitive voice. Throughout the process, it will be inevitable to feel moments of self-doubt, self-question, um, especially if it looks very different from what your family systems um, have chosen or live. So to really like continue to tap into your own truth, to your own intuitive knowing, and that might look different for each person. For me, it was really taking space to be with myself And whether it came through journaling, um, being out in nature for sure, and always just like tapping into that space. And of course, movement. I mean, that's dance is dance for me is one on one with a conversation
Mm.
with the God within me, and that's where I receive a lot of my messages, um, for sure. So I think that that would be one piece is just continue to cultivate that clarity of voice within yourself. Um, the other piece would be really connecting with other people, and it. I mean, if you're one of the first in your group to make this type of move, these are likely to be people that you've never met before. You might have to like really do some like searching outside of your circle,
Mm.
who are open to these types of realities or who are already living these types of realities. And that's one of the reasons why you and I have come together to like create this space because that's what I'm hoping for other people uh, who just have this stroke of thought like maybe this can be my life, and to be able to have a collective to like tap in and get some different perspectives and some type of encouragement. And I say that because to have a sense of community that can reflect back where you are seeing to go is key. So it's one thing to take space for yourself and get clear on your own voice, but then to be able to lean back into community that reflects where you are going or where you all are going is especially key in these times, even more so in these times. Community is always important, always has been, especially from where we come from as Black people. It's been one within our culture. But in terms of what we are facing and what we have been facing already, um, it is, I believe, it's very crucial to come together and build from that space and learn each other's inner resources, outer resources, and cultivate from that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's perfect. And I think that really speaks a lot to the reason why we decided to call this a collective. It's speaking to the fact that there's just so much brilliance and knowledge and wisdom within us as a community that while it is very totally understandable why we to get caught up in the kind of car crash of everything that's happening around us in terms of the problem, in terms of solutions and our resilience. There's just so much within us that we can share and connect to. And yeah, it's this time where we're having to deal with digital spaces. It has its pros and it has its cons, but I think the fact that I'm chatting to you from London and you're in Philly and we're talking about the Caribbean and there's people in the Caribbean who've moved from wherever. Yeah, just kind of building that digital space where we can share ideas and innovate and connect and support and share all of those emotions, I think is really, I'm excited.
Yes,
So yeah, I
truly.
think, yeah, I think that's all the questions I have to ask. Is there anything else you wanted to say?
Oh man. Well, I just wanted to, I mean, thank you for asking such a soul invoking and reflecting question. Um, I've always felt like you have had a gift for that, and I'm just grateful to be able to build with you and also grow this space with others who see themselves within our own experience or within their own. Um, but yeah, I'm definitely excited. I'm excited to continue this and have more conversations with other beings.
Yeah, me too. I think you're like you hold the perfect space. You've experienced it, you've gone through the motions, you've gone through the deep rooted work, and yeah, to kind of share your experience and to bring in the journeys of other people, I think is going to be really exciting. So
Yeah.
yeah,
All
thank you
right.
very much.
Yeah.
Till the next time.
Yes. Oh, it's
Thank
love.
you.
Thank you,
Bye.
Zoe. Bye.
Bye.